We are truly delighted that you have joined us tonight as we begin this special 3 days journey called Running on the Full Power. Over the next 3 evenings, tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday at 7 p.m., we will explore how to unlock a level of vitality, clarity, and strength far beyond what most of us ever imagined possible. It's my privilege to warmly welcome our guest speaker, Dr. Ernest J. a lifestyle medicine advocate, personal growth educator, and author of the Full Power Plan, Nature's Formula for Optimal Body-Mind Vitality. Dr. Brake has spent over 30 years teaching audiences across Canada, the United States, around the world how to experience transformation at the root cause level. His gift is the ability to take science, life principles, and personal mastery and shape them into a practical roadmap for everyday life. Whether you are here seeking better physical health, stronger willpower, emotional balance, weight control, or simply a deeper sense of fulfillment, you are in the right place. This seminar is not just another wellness program. It is a game plan for whole person vitality. And weight loss, if that's your goal, will naturally follow as one of the many positive outcomes. Thank you again for being here tonight. We are excited for what you will discover, and we trust these next 3 evenings will inspire you, challenge you, and set you up on a path to living your full life at full power. So, dear friends, please join me in welcoming Dr. Ernest J. Brake.
Well, hello, everybody. How you doing? Nice to see you. It's been about, 4 years since I've been here. And some of you I recognize, and you really haven't grown a bit, so that's pretty good, I must say. I was telling a few people, I remember actually before this church was even built, and I was saying, I actually saw the hill and the green grass upon which this church was built. And guess who showed it to me? It was the president of the BC conference at that time, Rio Ganson. For those of you who've been here that long, goes all the way, that's like 30, 27, 28 years ago. Well, welcome aboard. Some of you may know that I've retired, and so I'm officially, as of just a few weeks ago, a senior citizen. I just turned 65. And I was able to give my card over to the lady at the ferry. And if you live on the island, if you're traveling on the ferry on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, you get to go free if you're a senior citizen. So I had my first senior citizen privilege just given to me today. So anyway, so I'm glad, very glad for that. And so we're going to be talking about body, mind, vitality. And let me just share with you. Is there anyone here who has not been in this church before? Like you're a guest. Is there anyone here? Like, are you new? Or have you been around here for a while? Because I want to make sure. Do you mind? I like to pray. Can we pray right now? I'm going to pray that God would speak to us because I believe that He's our creator. And He created us for really good things, perhaps even more than we even think. I like to pray. Father in heaven, Lord, I thank you that you have indeed created us. And when you created us, I'm guessing that you had a lot of exciting things in mind for us. And you also knew the devil would come in too and kind of mess things up. But Lord, you're in the business of restoration. So Lord, I pray that you would speak to us tonight and help us to figure out what we can do to make our bodies and minds a more powerful and precise instrument in your hands, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. I won't spend too much time on this slide, but just to let you know, it's Thursday. We're talking about this on Thursday, optimal vitality, so I won't read that paragraph. Tomorrow night is basically, whenever I do this, people say, I need to know about nutrition. I need to know about food. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And then on Saturday morning, Sabbath morning, that'll be more of a spiritual thing and how spirituality contributes to body-mind vitality. That's on Saturday morning. And then on Saturday night, our last time together, this is the question. People say, oh, I know what I should eat, what I should do. I just don't feel like doing it. And so it's willpower. And we're going to talk about willpower and where we need it and where we don't. And so that's on Saturday night. So we cool with that as we go along? Question. What are the time? 7 o'clock, right? So 7 o'clock, and then Sabbath morning, 11? And then 7 o'clock. So, yeah. And so it's based on this book. Now, some of you may know I used to work in the conference office in Abbotsford. I was there for 11 years. First as a ministerial director, then as the assistant to president for strategic planning, REACH. You may have heard of REACH before. And then as the vice president of administration. And then while I was the vice president for administration, I was sitting at my desk one day, 6 years ago, and I thought to myself, you know what? I feel a Macedonian call. Now, do you know what I mean? Those of you who know your Bibles, a Macedonian call. The Apostle Paul was doing a good work, and he had a vision from Macedonia. So come over here, we need you. And so the Holy Spirit stopped him from doing God's work to change him around to do God's work in a different way, in a different place. I felt that while I was in the conference office. And because I used to travel around a lot, I still do actually, and I used to travel all over British Columbia. There's about 110 churches and companies or so. And I've been to about 80 of them, I'm sure, at least that many. And I would see needs. I would see needs, and I'm thinking, I want to help. I want to be able to do something. People are sick. People want to have more strength. People want to have a way to reach the community and make a difference in a way that's like easy to do and it feels good to help people, that kind of stuff. And so when the time was right, it wasn't immediately, but when the time was right, I did retire, and I wrote this book. It took 2.5 years. This is God's book. And it's basically taking all the things that our Creator wants us to have so that we can feel His strength. And He's giving us some principles to do that. And so that's why the first question is, can you read it there? What's the first question on the top? Want to get well? That's actually what Jesus said in John chapter 5, verse 6. Talking to the man at the pool of Bethesda. Do you want to be well? The poor man, he wanted to get well. And Jesus says, I'm here for you. And that's what I want us to be. And so, but how do we do it? Well, yeah, we have the hospitals and we have medication, we have surgery. All that's fine, but I won't be talking about any of that. I'll be talking about what we can do to prevent that, at least as much as we can anyway. And so that's why we're calling it the root causes, And so it's based upon this book here. And I don't know if you can see that there, but tonight we'll be introducing it. And then we'll be talking about what's in chapter 6. I can read it better here on the screen right here. And then we'll be talking about chapter 7 and 8, which is, we're calling it omit what is harmful. Some of you have heard the word temperance. And if you're like really, really old, you might have heard the word abstemiousness. How many of you are that old? Okay, I didn't think so. So we'll talk about how do we omit what is harmful, and we'll be dealing with that on Saturday night, because that's the big question that everybody has. And then tomorrow morning, on Sabbath morning, we'll talk about this, the spiritual contributions to your health. Now, you probably have heard that the healthcare system in the world is not doing very well. You can hardly look at the news. At least once a week, you're going to get something to say the doctors, the nurses, they're in trouble. I just read this morning that 10% of the doctors, not even nurses, just doctors, go to take care of their mental health. 10% have mental health needs. And that's a lot. And it started to get that high during COVID. because a lot of pressures were on. And if you happen to be in the healthcare system, may God bless you. You're my hero. Thank you for what you do to help us. Because the doctors give so much. And so here's an example. The U.S. healthcare system, you can see there's Uncle Sam. He needs some help. Here's the same thing in Britain. This is not about greed. It's about survival, says the nurses in Britain. Go over to India. The World Health Organization recommends a doctor for every 1,000 patients. But in India, one for every 11,000 patients. In other words, they're sick and they can't get some care. All over the place we see it. So, in about the year 2030, we're going to need, in the world, 80 million healthcare people. 80 million. But we're only going to have 65 million. In other words, with the lack of 15 million doctors and nurses and healthcare people, there's going to be a lot of people who won't get health care. And what does that make you think? I better take care of myself because I'm not going to be able to always depend on the healthcare system. As good as it is in Canada, I know we have our complaints, but I'm sure glad it's there. I'm sure glad it's there when we need the healthcare system in Canada. But if I could illustrate it by talking about this grandfather and granddaughter, two scenarios. Scenario number one, you can tell that they love each other. The granddaughter loves her granddad. He's there for her. If she has a problem, he's got some encouragement and counsel. But in scenario number one, little does he know, he'll die of a heart attack 1 year after this picture. And now the granddaughter does not have her granddad anymore to be with her, to walk down the aisle at her wedding or be there at the wedding or graduation, Christmas, nothing. Just there'll be an empty hole in the family. Why? Because granddad had a heart attack and died. Scenario number two. Granddad happens to hear about a health program, kind of like Full Power. It could be New Start. It could be other programs that maybe someone here even puts on. And instead of getting that heart attack, because he's learned to take care of his body and his mind, both are needed, he doesn't get that heart attack after all. And now he lives another 25 years or so. And he's there for his granddaughter. He's there to give her a hug. He's there to give her encouragement. And so now she grows up, and when she gets married, granddad is there. That's the difference between those two scenarios that the health message can make. It's just so huge. It's so huge. It makes a big difference. Well, maybe I can show it this way. In the world, and the world is not always the same as Canada, but I like to read some of the highest, the biggest killers of disease, killers that are disease, off the screen. 10 most common chronic conditions. The healthcare system was mainly set up not for chronic conditions, but for acute conditions. But there's more chronic conditions nowadays, and that's one reason why the healthcare system can't take it all. So we have hypertension or high blood pressure, high cholesterol, arthritis, heart disease, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, heart failure, depression, Alzheimer's, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or what is that? COPD. So these are the top 10. In Canada, the biggest killer is cancer. It used to be heart disease, but now it's cancer. In the world, it's heart disease. People die of some form of heart disease. Number one killer in the world. Canada is cancer. So we don't want to do that. So what we want to do is say, I want to live. I want to live strong. I want to be healthy. I want to have a brain that doesn't have brain fog. And so this is actually a picture out of the Full Power Plan workbook. And the concept is you assess where you are right now. And I'll give you some thoughts and some materials if you want later on. And you see there, the vitality assessment is on page 7. That's the workbook. I can I don't want to give it to you. It costs money to print, so I can sell it to you for whatever the printing cost was, if you want it. But on page 7 is a vitality assessment that asks you questions. How are you feeling in 25 different ways? Then you go through the Full Power program, the health principles that get at the root cause of strength and health and of preventing disease. And then that takes you to where you want to be. And there's a 28-day program that you can do if you want to go at it entirely full force. But the idea is you ask yourself, where am I right now? You take stock of your health. And then where do I want to be? And then what do I do to get there? And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit here tonight. And I'll be with you for only 4 times. The last time I did this program, I spoke 15 times over 17 days or something like that. It was in the Soyuz. And so I'm going to be giving you a taste of it. And if you want, you can get the book. If you don't want to, I can just give you some free materials. Just email me, or perhaps I can email your pastor and he can send out some stuff to you on the email. So here's a quote from Dr. Katz. He says, lifestyle as medicine has the potential to prevent up to 80% of chronic disease. Now, we just went over 10 of them, 10 of those diseases. Lifestyle medicine has potential to prevent 80% of them. No other medicine can do that, he says. Well, let's go on. In addition, it is as potentially inexpensive and even cost-saving, free of all but good side effects, safe and appropriate for children and octogenarians alike. It's simply the best medicine we've got. Now, I don't know if you know, but in Canada, the healthcare budget for Canada for the year 2025 is approaching $400 billion. And if we can eliminate the top 10 killer diseases, we can bring the government expense of healthcare down, I'm sure, to about $200 billion. There's still going to be diseases, of course. But we can actually save taxpayer money by being healthy or by being less sick. And that's what we want to be able to do. So now imagine then, you say, yes, I'm interested in knowing what are the principles of health, and Full Power is actually an acronym. It's every letter represents something, and I'll share with you those letters in a moment. Like New Start, have you heard of New Start? You know, N stands for nutrition, E stands for exercise. Full Power is just like that. But only Full Power inserts something that New Start does not have, and that is the psychological part of it. The mental part, the emotional part, the social part. All of those have contributions to health as well. So now imagine that Full Power now is a workshop. And some people, they say, well, I feel like I'm an old jalopy. My body is breaking down. And think of this old jalopy. I could tell you if I drove my car, it looks like that. And I would sell it to you for $19 if you take it off my hands. It's leaking, the brakes don't work, it's got a lot of body work that's needed. Now, let's just say that our bodies are kind of like a car, right? Our car is a good car or old car and getting old and dilapidated, but then we put the car into the shop. In other words, we take our bodies and our minds and we start new habits that affect the root cause of how we feel, the good and the bad part of how we feel. Now watch what comes out of the Full Power workshop. Ooh, whoa. What's that? Can you recognize that car? That is a Ferrari. Yes. I looked it up. It's $1.2 million. It is a high precision machine. That Ferrari is well built, is built for power, and it's built for speed. But guess what? The manufacturer of you built you. to be a high precision machine. And you're worth well over $1.2 million. There's some similarities there. One of the similarities is that the Ferrari is high precision and it runs only on high octane fuel. And it's expensive. Our bodies are like 1,000, maybe 1,000,000 times more precise and complicated than a Ferrari. And our bodies run on fuel too. We call it food. Not junk food, but real food. And that's fuel, and we're talking about that tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. Nutrition and stuff. Yeah, the prioritizing high-octane fuel. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So the idea here is we want to be able to take in the benefits of what we're promised. Now, here I am talking to you and saying that you can be healthy and strong and fit. And every time I say that, there's always a few people who say, I don't believe you. I think you're just all about hype, just hyping it up. You just want to make it look good, but it's not. And so I feel like that person is like this kid on the screen. He's looking at you. Is that possible? Are you sure? So I need to convince this guy, this little kid. How old is he? 1 year old, maybe. 2, maybe. I think he's probably in his terrible 2s. That's probably what it is, you know? So I'm going to convince him. If you were this fellow who's 98 years old and he's playing pickleball, but he's not only playing, he's teaching people how to play pickleball at the age of 98. How can he do that? Because he's following some of the principles of full power. That's how he can do that. Here's another man. He's 100 years old. I actually met him about 35 years ago. His name is Dr. John Scharfenberg. He used to teach at Loma Linda University. And I met him in Newfoundland when I was a young pastor back in the 80s. And he was teaching health at that time. He's now 100 years old. Probably now he's 102 or something. He's, at the time this was done on him, that lady there in the picture, she's a journalist. And she's interviewing him. She's so impressed with a 100-year-old man. You know why? He's still traveling the world on an airplane, teaching health principles at 100 years old. I figure, well, if he can do it, why can't I? I mean, there's got to be something that he's doing that I could copy. There's got to be something. And so it gave me some hope. I don't know. What do you think of this lady? I don't know how old she is, but I figure if she could do it, why can't I? Well, I tried that. I kind of bumped my head a little bit. This guy here, his name is John. Jon, John. He was a person who had a number of visits to the doctor, and finally the doctor says, we've done all we can do. You have 1 year to live. So he is given a death sentence. He had 1 year to live. He did all he could with the healthcare system. This was in the States. And nothing worked, and he was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. He had diabetes. And all the complications that come from diabetes. So he decides, I've tried everything I can that is what's known in the healthcare system. I'm now going to go do the natural way. In other words, following some of the principles of full power. But he didn't know it was called full power because full power didn't exist as that, like packaged that way. But he did it. So I'm going to show you a little video, just a short video, of a before and after. Because I want to convince that kid who looks at you and says, is that really possible? I'm telling you it is possible. Here's John. Look at John. Here he is. He's coming down the steps to the beach. And this is the before picture. So you see John. Here he is. Now look at him. Has anyone noticed the difference? Here he is on the beach. Here he is walking along, walking along. Now, look. The same guy. Does he look like he's going to die in a year? He's still going. He's going even faster. That guy was given a death sentence. He was given 1 year to live. He went on a similar program to Full Power, and now look at him going. I'm telling you, it is absolutely possible. And so let me see if I can get on the next one. I think I doubled that up. I'm going to skip the doubling. Sorry about that. So this lady, her name is Susan Pierce Thompson. Anybody ever hear of her? She's actually quite famous. She wrote a book called Bright Line Eating. And there she is at 20 years old. And there she is 20 years later or so, maybe 30 years later by now, I don't know. And she's now a professor. Actually, she was a professor of psychology on eating and weight loss and things like that. And the psychology of eating. That was her expertise. And so she said, listen, it can be done. It can be done. And so I quote her in my book as well. This is one of her students, a before and after picture of one of her students. This is not one of her students. I showed this picture a number of years ago at Camp Hope, and somebody says, I know her, or at least I know of her. In this picture, she's 84 years old. That's what they say, 84. If she can do that at 84, why couldn't I do that at 65? And so, in other words, it is possible. And so my goal was to figure out what is it in the science that's actually credible, verifiable, that actually works. And so I read all these books and then some, looking at all the studies that have been done and things like that. And so you can probably, maybe you've read. How many of you recognize a book that maybe you've read? Raise your hands. Yeah, okay. What book? What book is it? Yeah, the China Study. Big one, right? I mean, it's huge, the impact that it made. What one? Did you raise your hand? Same one. I guess the China Study might be the most popular. What one? The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's sort of the F of Full Power. Find your superpower to fulfill your purpose. Pardon? Okay, another one as well. So, yeah, these are popular books. They're very influential books. And so what I did is I studied these books. I marked these books, and I quote these books, and I put them all together into this book right here, so that you don't have to spend all those hours reading like I did. You just need to read one, and you get it all right there, called the Full Power Plan. And so I also quote this guy. Now, does anybody here recognize who he is? He's someone who I think you need to get to know. He lives in California. His name is Dr. Dean Ornish. Dr. Dean Ornish is sometimes called the father of lifestyle medicine. He's the one who has used high-tech scientific studies to prove that low-tech health habits work better than many times pills and medicine and surgery. He's written a number of books. He's had a number of awards, a number of accolades. Go to his website, I think it's called ornish.com. But if you're going to get anything from him, this is the book right here called Undo It. And he's basically saying, undo your diabetes, undo your heart disease, undo your cancer risk, undo your COPD, undo it, undo it. Undo even Alzheimer's, early stage Alzheimer's, at least that's what the study has been shown. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about not just the body, but the mind, because the two are one. Ornish study shows lifestyle changes improved cognition in early Alzheimer's patients. I'll read what's in yellow. Intense lifestyle intervention without drugs significantly improved cognition and function in many patients with early dementia and Alzheimer's disease. There's one couple, I think they're in their 60s. They owned a business, a man and a woman. And the woman was getting Alzheimer's disease. Now, in the business, it was the woman's job, the wife's job, to take care of the books, the finances. She'd do the entries into the accounting of the books. And now she couldn't do that. Her brain was not working anymore. She couldn't do it. And she went to Dr. Dean Ornish's program, maybe about 6 months or so. And they went radical. They fed her only plant-based foods, only. Fruits, nuts, grains, vegetables, legumes. We'll talk about this tomorrow night. Only that. They had her doing walking every day and whatever else they did. They had her knowing about love and relationships, which we won't be talking about too much, but that's a big influence on health. After 6 months, the husband thought, you know what, I'm going to see if this was working. So he gave his wife a simple accounting job to do, simple bookworking. And she took it, and after a few hours, I don't know, a day or whatever it was, not only did she do the accounting, but she did the advanced part of it too and gave it back to her husband. He was blown away because he'd heard that once you get Alzheimer's disease, you got it forever. Dr. Dean Ornish is showing that's not true. It's just brand new studies, just now. But you have to get radical with what you put into your brain and into your body. And that's what's showing that. And that's why I would say, learn about Dr. Dean Ornish. He helps you understand how the body and mind both work. The ineffectiveness of pharmacological treatment in many chronic diseases, compared with the power of lifestyle, is also evident in the cognitive science field. So it's not just our muscles and our organs, it's our minds as well. Acknowledging this, a press release for the 2019 Alzheimer's Association International Conference emphasized the focus on lifestyle with the conclusion that adopting 4 or 5 healthy lifestyle factors, not even all of them, just only 4 or 5 of them. What does it say? Reduce risk of Alzheimer's dementia by 60%. Compared with adopting none or only 1. And I'm hearing from the medical field that that's impossible. Dr. Dean Ornish showed it is not impossible. When we think of lifestyle habits and Mother Nature's principles, there are some possibilities that are new possibilities beyond what we thought. And the science is just bearing this out in the last few years as we go along. The Scientific American summary of the conference was entitled, Alzheimer's Meeting, Lifestyle Factors Are the Best and Only Bet Now for Reducing Dementia Risk. Lifestyle factors. I know a little bit about this because my grandmother had Alzheimer's for 16 years before she died. I could see it developing in her and stuff like that. And they gave her lots of experimental drugs to see what they could do and whatnot. So I'm a little bit familiar with that. My grandmother, by the way, is someone who I would have considered to be an angel. I loved visiting my grandma's house. It was like better than Disneyland, going to grandma's house. And she got Alzheimer's. How sad it was. How sad it was to see that. You may have heard of this fellow, I don't know. How many of you remember Matthew Perry? Yeah, he used to play in a show called what? Friends. And he wrote a book on his depression. It's interesting. I quote him in my book as well because at the peak of his career, he was worth about $150 million. And he still had depression. It tells you that money is not the answer. And so depression, by the way, is the leading cause of disability worldwide, according to the World Health Organization. And it reminded me of this proverb when I read what he said. And you can see some interviews on YouTube with Matthew Perry talking about it before he died. Even in laughter, says Solomon, the heart may sorrow. And he was someone who made people laugh. He was a funny guy. But yet, the Bible says, even in laughter, the heart can sorrow. And so we recognize that there are diseases and illnesses like all over the world. And you know people who have them, and so do I. And I'm not saying that you can be cured overnight or some miracle will happen, but I'm saying that there are principles that if we actually took them radically seriously, that would really increase our chances of of reducing the risk of getting them and even reverse some of them. No promises at all for any of them, but chances are better when we follow this. Now, what does this say to you, what you see on the screen right now? What does it tell you? What do you see here? Yeah, dominoes. And we use the dominoes to show the domino effect. It's a way to illustrate the cause and effect. Now, imagine the last domino, the one like on that side, is the last thing that happened to you, not to you, to someone else. And it was a heart attack or a diabetes diagnosis. And we want to say, okay, what caused that? And then we want to say, well, what caused that? Now, the medical system often deals with what's called the proximal cause. What maybe one or two causes back. But what we want to deal with is all the way back to the root cause. And that's why I put the dominoes there to illustrate the difference between God's health message and what man wants to do. So I'm very thankful for people who can give me something that alleviates symptoms. But sometimes it only masks the cause of that. And so this is why I put that up there. Now, here's another way to illustrate that. Anyone here ever seen this drawing before? Raise your hands. It's been around a long time. Actually, it was commissioned by Dr. Dean Ornish. And then Dr. Hans Diehl used it in the CHIP program. If you've ever heard of the CHIP program, not chips, like potato chips. No, not that. CHIP, C-H-I-P, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But this, actually, look at this right here. See, what's this? That's a stethoscope. So this is depicting a doctor helping this lady mop up the floor, which, of course, if the floor gets wet and got water all over it, you want to mop it up. But now look. Now look. Tell me what's going on there now. And then, we'll talk about this in a bit, the lady comes to the doctor and says, how long do I have to continue mopping the floor? Which is the same as saying, how long do I need to be on these pills? How long do I need to be dealing with the symptom? Now, in this situation, what would you recommend? Because I know you're smart enough to know. Tell me. Yeah. Turn off the tap. Turn off the faucet. Turn off the cause. Treat the cause. And it may be that when you turn off the tap, you still have some mopping to do, but not forever. And that's the difference between the health message, which deals with the root causes, versus the treatment that deals with only the symptoms. And this was produced by Dr. Dean Ornish, and then Dr. Hans Diehl took it over. Let's just color that up a little bit so we can see it all. There you go, see? That's it. So we want to be doing what we can at the sink, turning off the cause of the flooding. Not dealing with the mopping dealing with the mopping on the floor too, if we need it. And many of us do, of course. But that's the kind of the idea. Now, interestingly, when we do that, when we get serious about following Mother Nature's principles, we end up not just stopping one disease from happening upon us 5 years from now, but quite likely 2 or 3 or 4. In other words, it almost seems unfair that when people get sick with one thing, they often get sick with something else. It's like they all come together. Why? Because the underlying mechanism affects all those things. And that's kind of cool, isn't it? It's good because then we can prevent 100 diseases if we just dealt with the first causes. That's the idea. There's a lady, Frances Gregor. She was 65 years old. This is some years ago now, back in the 70s, maybe 80s. And she was another one of those people who was given 1 year to live. She had a number of heart operations, and she could not walk because of the edema, I think, in her legs without pain. She's just in pain when she walked. So she had to be in a wheelchair at 65. The doctor says, you know what? We've done all the heart bypasses that we could. We've done everything we could. I'm sorry. And they sent her home at 65, which is the exact same age I am right now. Sent her home to die in a wheelchair. Now, Frances happened to have family members who love her. She had a grandson who was 10 years old, who was just very upset about losing his grandmother. But they heard about something on a TV show called 60 Minutes a number of years ago. And it was, they were interviewing a guy named Nathan Pritikin. And Nathan Pritikin was on TV saying, at my Pritikin Longevity Center, I can have people come in and I can increase their chances of living in spite of the diseases that they have. And so the family of Frances thought, you know what? We're going to send Grandma, we're going to send Mom, we're going to send Frances, she lived in Florida, over to California where the Pritikin Longevity Center was. So they did. Cost a lot of money. As a matter of fact, you can see why it cost a lot of money, because that's what it looked like at the time. And they fed her only plant foods, fruits, nuts, grains, vegetables, legumes, nothing else but that. And only water between meals, nothing else. They had her walking a little bit. It hurt a little bit, but they had her walking just a little bit, and then she'd stop, walk a little bit more, and then she'd stop. And they did that several times a day. And they taught her how to cook and things like that. She was there for, I think it was 21 days. 21 days. And on day 21, she lost the pain of walking. Now she could walk. As a matter of fact, she could walk 10 miles a day in 21 days on high-octane fuel. And that's pretty cool because, there's another picture of it in daytime there, she felt like this guy. You can imagine, you're given 1 year to live, you're in a wheelchair, it hurts just to walk. And in 21 days, they took the risk, they found a way to get her on an airplane, you know, the wheelchair and all that kind of stuff. And in 21 days, it's like she's going across the finish line and she's winning. This is Frances. Well, interestingly enough, Frances Greger, it's the grandmother of Michael Greger, who wrote these books. When little Michael was 10 years old, he was the grandson of Frances Greger. And he was so relieved to have her come back to Florida, healthy and fit. The doctors gave her 1 year to live, but she lived 36 more years. And she died at the age of, 97, 32 more years, died at 97. I mean, she lived a long time. Can you imagine all the Christmases that they had together now and all? What a testament to the message, to the program that she was under. Well, it's interesting that little Michael Greger grew up watching his grandmother be healthy and fit and happy after just having 1 year to live some years ago. And he said, I'm going to go into medicine. And I'm going to learn what they did for my grandmother so I can teach the whole world. And you can go to his website. Do you know what it's called? nutritionfacts.org. F-A-C-T-S, facts. nutritionfacts.org. And he wrote these books. How many of you have heard of the book, How Not to Die? Raise your hands. Yeah, some of you heard that book. Good book. It's another big book, kind of like the China study. It was huge. It's, if you can't read it, you can use it at least for a doorstop. It's that big. And then How Not to Diet. And then a later book called How Not to Age. In How Not to Diet, he has almost 5,000 scientific references. He's been not just double-checked, but fact-checked from 9 fact-checkers. He doesn't earn a penny from his website or these books. I think somebody's supporting him from Canada that I understand. And so he's not biased or tempted with money or corporate greed or anything like that. He wants to get the facts out so that more and more people can be like his grandmother and live like 32 years longer. That's radical. And so I asked the question, is it possible the things we're saying? He proved it was. His grandmother's proof that it was. Well, it's interesting that at the Pritikin Longevity Center, there was a man, a doctor who was there, and it was that doctor's job to measure Frances, her blood, her weight, her ability to walk, the food. He was there, he measured everybody. He just, whatever they did, the triglycerides, the blood sugar, he measured it all. That doctor, his name was Hans Diehl. And Dr. Hans Diehl was there when Francis Greger was wheeled in to the Pritikin Longevity Center. And he was there 21 days later when she tossed her chair and she just marched her way to the airport and went on home. Dr. Diehl was so amazed at what good nutrition and good health principles can do. It's not just about the food, but the food sure does matter. He was so amazed. He said, how can I take this show on the road? And do you know what he came up with? He came up with something called the CHIP program. And this guy named Bob shows up at the CHIP program. The CHIP program, C-H-I-P, do you remember what it stood for? Those of you might remember. Coronary Health Improvement. And at that time, it was called, the P stood for Project. Now, it's changed its name. You know why? Changed its name. It's no longer in existence today. But they found out, this was for coronary health, CH, coronary health. But they found out that what you do for your heart also helps your diabetes. What you do for your heart not only helps diabetes, but also helps to reverse other diseases, chronic diseases. So they didn't call it Coronary Health Improvement Project anymore. They call it Complete Health Improvement Program, but still CHIP, because of what Dr. Dean Ornish found, that when you help to reverse one disease, you're actually helping to reverse so many others, because the underlying mechanism in the body is similar. So this guy named Bob, he goes to one of the CHIP programs. People like Bob, who had multiple bypasses, was taking nearly 20 pills a day, and yet had been told that he only had months to live, yet had given up all hope, turned their lives around, and by applying these principles. Just like Michael's grandmother, Frances Greger, weight was lost, hope and confidence were restored. Bob gave up many of his pills, became strong and confident, and took up cycling. He's able to cycle halfway across Canada, showing everybody you can regain life at full power if you apply the principles. A man who was on 20 pills a day. He couldn't hardly do much at all. And what does it say here? He was given only months to live. He goes on to a program. In other words, he changes his habits. That's pretty well what he does. And now he's able to get on a bicycle and cycle all the way across halfway across the country. And Canada is a big country to drive across, and much less to cycle across. It's just amazing. Here he is again. Well, I met a man like him. So I'd heard about the CHIP program. I was a young pastor living in Mission, not too far away. And this was back in the early 2000s. And I heard about Hans Diehl and the programs, and I talked to my church board. I said, you know what? We can help the people in our town. I was also the pastor of Maple Ridge as well at the time. This was 25 years ago or so. And I talked to them too. And they said, you know what? We want to do it. We want to be able to put on a CHIP program, so we did. So in Maple Ridge, this man, it almost looks just like him. I know it's a cartoon from the internet, but it looks just like him. He was what I would call the meanest, grumpiest, most ornery man I've ever met. He shows up to our information session, and we tell people what the program is all about, and he's raising his hand all the time, and he's saying, "What's in it for you?" I mean, he's just angry at us. Well, come, and he's the one who say, "You're in my face." I mean, he's just so angry, and he obviously didn't read that book, How to Make Friends and Influence People. Let's just put it that. He did not know anything about that at all. But he shows up. Come to find out, I found out why he was so angry. He was angry because, number one, he had to give up his work because he couldn't walk across the kitchen without losing his breath. He'd go, just walking across the kitchen. He couldn't do it. He was on 23 pills a day, 23, 24, I forget which. He had a dream that he had to give up because that dream was he wanted to ride a bike as well. He wanted to ride the bike was in his basement. Couldn't ride it. Couldn't walk hardly at all. And so he came out of desperation to our program because the doctors had given up on him. He was another one of those people who had all these heart bypasses, and the doctor says, "We've done all we can do," and they gave him a year to live, whatever it may be. So he comes to the CHIP program for 28 days. And we have a graduate, we meet 4 nights a week for 4 weeks. Hans Deal is on the video. He's telling people about, heart, how the heart works and how what you eat makes a difference and get your exercise. You're going through all that stuff. And we're measuring everybody's kilometers that they walk, and we're having a friendly competition with it all. We give food demonstrations as well. So here you can have tasty food. It can still be healthy. It was all that kind of stuff. We do it all. And so now the graduation time comes. And this ornery man who's been getting nicer and nicer every night, he stands up and he's our star student. We checked everybody's blood before and everybody's blood afterwards for their triglycerides, their blood sugars, and their cholesterol. HDL, LDL, all that stuff. Blood pressures as well. We check it all, and we have sheets of paper that we pass out to all of the students, all of the participants. And on the sheets of papers, their numbers of their blood, called the blood panel, before and after. And our man here, we'll call him Fred, is a star student. His cholesterol goes down by 40%. His blood sugars go down. I don't know by how much, but by a lot. He stands up and he says, I was on 23 pills a day, right? I'm now down to 4 pills a day. And this is just in 1 month. Just in 1 month, down to 4 pills a day. And he says, not only that, but I dusted off my bicycle. And he lived in Maple Ridge. He says, yesterday, I drove my bicycle from Maple Ridge to Mission and back again. This is the guy who gasped just to walk across the kitchen. He couldn't get his breath. And now here he is riding his bike to Mission and back to Maple Ridge again in just 28 days on this program. So when I asked the question, is it possible? The answer is yes, it is possible. So I want to give you that hope. And you can give other people that hope. Give them that hope. It's possible. So here he is riding away, all the way to Mission and Maple Ridge, back again. And his doctor, Dr. Mother Nature, says, my prescription for you is full power so you can live on full power. Well, I'm nearing the end now of my chat with you. It was just a few weeks ago I heard about this guy. So here's another one. Here's another one. He's from England, from Britain. Paul Yode is his name. He's 88 years old, running toward 100 ultra marathons. Now, a marathon is 42 kilometers. An ultra marathon could be, I don't know how many kilometers is that, 100 kilometers? A lot more than 42 kilometers. And here he is. He starts in his 60s and 70s. Now he's 88 years old. He's still running ultra marathons. And he says he does 2,000 push-ups in a week. So as soon as I read that, I did some push-ups. I never got 2,000, though. He says, before, the arthritis in my fingers was so bad that I couldn't even shake hands, and now it went vegan, and all the pain went away. Really? Wow. How much is painlessness worth to you, you know? He couldn't have imagined in his 40s when his arthritis began, and it began to limit his mobility. He says, everything was painful, he said. I tried to run back then, but my knees were so sore, I gave up after 6 weeks. So he tried his best to get in shape. He knew he should get out and exercise, but it hurt. He says, but in his 60s, Yod went vegan, which means whole food. It doesn't mean whole foods plant-based, but that's what we're talking about. You can actually be vegan and drink beer and eat French fries, and you can be vegan. So I would say, don't go for vegan. Go for whole foods plant-based. We'll talk about that tomorrow night. If you want to look up recipes on the internet, don't look up vegan. Look up whole foods plant-based. WFPB. Look that up. Look up natural foods and stuff like that. Anyway, but he went vegan. So often that means vegetarian and stuff like that. No meat, no eggs, no cheese, no stuff like that, and just have fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables. So he did that. And he did it for ethical reasons, because he didn't want to see animals get hurt. So that was the reason why he did it. And he ended up reaping some unexpected benefits. All the arthritis pain went away. Now, that doesn't work for everybody with arthritis, because there's different kinds of arthritises. But it worked for him. It worked for him. He was just amazed. And so I'm going to just kind of summarize a little bit right here. This is in the Full Power Workbook. I brought some along with me if you want. It's the principles that we're looking at, the key assumptions that we want is long-term health is more valuable than short-term fixes. So that's the goal of the Full Power program, long-term health, not just short-term fixes. The next goal, the next assumption is the body and mind are one. Hence, we have one word called body-mind. What you do to your body, you do to your mind. What you do to your mind, you do to your body. And then, number 3, treating the root cause is more therapeutic than managing the symptoms. The root causes of body-mind health are identified in the principles of Full Power. And then, number 4, we change how we feel by changing what we do. You measure how you feel by completing the Vitality Self-Assessment on page 7 of the workbook. I can give that to you. Email, if anything you want, just email me and I'll just give it to you. I have these habit trackers, things like that. And you don't even need the book for that. I can just give it to you. But hey, if you want to get the book, you're fine to do it. Measure what you do by completing the Full Power Performance Assessment. So you measure how you feel, change what you do, measure what you do, and that changes how you feel. You change how you feel by changing what you do. This is kind of the whole thing here. And that's all there too. I'm not going to read that. There's a vitality assessment. Here's another version of it. Go to fullpower1.com on the internet. And when you do that, you'll see the vitality self-assessment. And it begins with a story of 2 men, Fred and Peter. I already introduced to you Fred. He was the grumpy guy who was able to now cycle from Maple Ridge to Mission and back. And these 2 men, Fred and Peter, the same age and health, grew up similar middle-class families, the same city, graduated from the same college with similar grades, and then went their separate ways. And it says, at their 35th college reunion, they meet up again. And they begin to do a life assessment. How are you doing? Oh, I see you're got heart disease, and I'm healthy. You know, and that's what happens, right? Ever gone to a reunion and you're kind of checking things out and all that kind of, well, that's what that is. And this is the guy, Fred, here. He was a seminar participant. So if you want, you can email me, and maybe you can email your pastor and give it to you and give it to everybody. And you can get the vitality assessment, or you can go to fullpower1.com and just download it. You download it, you get 6 pages. And then no matter what your score is out of 100, the assessment afterwards will say, here's what your score is, here's how the principles can help you, whether you get high or low. And then this part right here summarizes those principles, and You're probably wondering, well, what are those principles? It's got something to do with food and exercise. I'm sure you know that, but there's more to it. That summarizes it right there. And then this helps you to answer questions. How are you doing on those habits? You measure yourself out of 100 on that. So if you can get this higher, then you get how you feel better. And there it is there. So now I'm going to kind of introduce what are the principles, and then we'll go home. How are we doing for time, by the way? Is it time to stop? A few more minutes. Okay. Thank you. When it comes to health, happiness, and success, there's no silver bullet. Like, oh, vitamin C. If you just take vitamin C, it'll cure everything. Well, vitamin C is good. We need it. But it's part of a bigger picture. So there's no silver bullet. So imagine yourself, this is you right here. And you want to get better somehow, you want to be stronger, more healthy, and you want to do it in 6 months, and you read a book, you go to a seminar, you hear something on the news, and you try it, and you actually do improve, by, say, 10% or so. But it's only 10%. It's just one thing. What if this were you right here, and instead of just doing one thing, you found out what they all were? And you tried doing them all. Well, not all at once. There's a lot to do. But you begin to give yourself a goal in life. That one at a time, you're going to take care of this principle, the next principle. Maybe for a month, you work on a few things. And then the next month, you work on something else. You've got like a lifetime yet to live, to make yourself better off. And so right here, now here he is in 6 months. He's way up there. He's improved his life just like Fred did. And some of the others, like Francis Greger did. It's just amazing. And what helped? The principles of full power. And so I'm now going to tell you what they are. The FULL has to do with mental, psychological, emotional, social. The POWER is physical and physiological. So the body, mind, right? And so the first thing is find your superpower, meaning know what you were put in this world to do, and let that contribute to your purpose in life. And that has a cascading effect on everything else that we do. It's in the literature all over the place. Without a purpose, and we'll talk about this on Saturday night, without a purpose to guide us and give us strength, we just fall for so many other things that take us down the wrong road. So find your superpower. Unleash healthy spirituality. We'll touch on that a little bit on Sabbath morning. Loveify your life. Loveify your life. Ever heard of the word loveify before? Yeah? You know why? I just made it up. You heard of it, so you must have heard me before, because I've not heard the word until I made it up. And it really means to have the capacity to love others, and also to have the capacity to receive and attract love to yourself. It goes both ways, and we need both for us to be happy, healthy people. As a matter of fact, some studies from Harvard, I'm not going to talk much about this because we're not dealing with it this weekend, but studies from Harvard, a couple of them I'm thinking of, will tell you that the greatest contributor to longevity and health in an old age is not what you eat, is not your exercise, it's your friendships. It's how much love you have in your life. The love you feel has a physiological impact on our endocrine system, which is our hormones. And hormones are proteins, there's like small proteins, that tell other parts of the body what to do. And you can imagine then having the feeling of belonging, feeling appreciated, feeling respect, and loving other people and feeling love from other people. That has a physiological effect. So that's why we say loveify your life has to be a component of a life of full power. And we read about that in the Bible too, all over the place. And then launch your plan. There's no good knowing things without doing things. So we talk about setting a day to begin your new habits. Not all at once, it's a lot to do, but you pick 2 or 3 of them. This month I'm going to tackle this, and I'm going to measure myself. Now I have 3 out of 10. I'm going to get 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10, whatever it may be. And now we begin the physiological and physical part of it. Prioritize high-octane food, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Food and fuel are the same thing in this context. Omit what is harmful, which we'll talk about on Saturday night. Water up. Exercise, but exercise outdoors. Get your fresh air. Get your sunlight. It's like 3 doctors in one. Exercise, sunlight, and fresh air, all in one. And then, what does the R stand for? Of course, rest. Rest up. And we can talk about rest in so many different ways. And so you put all that together, you got yourself a life of full power. What do you think? Can you say amen to that? And so I'll just stop right there and let it go, and I'll turn it over to your pastor again. May God bless you in this. Come back tomorrow. Bring a friend, because, it's going to make a difference. I tell you, it's going to make a difference. You will feel the difference. This is something I like about the health message. No one has to argue you into it. You will know by how you feel whether it works or not. You will know. And so that's what I want to have. And that's why in the book I put all these ways to measure things so that you can know this stuff. Anyway, come on back tomorrow night, Friday night. What are we talking about tomorrow night is, nutrition. Talking about prioritizing high-octane fuel. You're going to be like a Ferrari tomorrow, all right? That's what we want. Anyway, over to you, Pastor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Brake, for this powerful and inspiration presentation. And thank you all for joining us this evening. So tomorrow the topic is fueling your body. And like Dr. Brake said, bring a friend and come ready to learn, grow, and take another step toward living your life on full power. Have a wonderful night, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.